folks who are in person. So this morning we have a special treat. Dr. Giulia Isetti is here to give a talk titled, "What Are We Feeding Ourselves?" And Dr. Isetti is a fitness coach, and her passion is inspiring and empowering people of all ages and backgrounds to find their inner motivation and achieve greatness in sport and life. And through this approach, she cultivates strong relationships with her clients and guides them to her greatest potential. And I know we have several of your clients here in the Sangha. And so we're happy to have you with us and excited to hear your talk this morning.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here. And I have no idea what I'm going to say, but I'll know if it was important because she's going to take notes. I was just writing a whole lot of things this morning, and one of the things that came to me was about how the energies that hold us back are so creative and wily, and that we really must learn to outcreate them. And so I hope I can talk a little bit about some of my practices and some of my neuroses, some of the things I notice about myself, and some of the ways that I have found, and share some of that. So Sojourner Truth said, "It is the mind that makes the body." And this morning I was reading from Maria Popova's work, something about Joan Didion, and something from Joan Didion. And one of the things that she says is, character, the willingness to accept responsibility for one's own life, is the source from which self-respect springs. So I'm just going to share a couple of stories with you, and I have really a whole novel here. I also am going to lead a short breath work with you guys. If you want to participate, that's lovely, and if you don't, they could just maybe sit in silence with us. So it was 4:30 in the morning. I rise early for work, and I get ready upstairs before coming down. We have a routine, the dogs and I, a ministry of love. Lily sleeps with me and is almost always lying next to me with her head on my right shin as I wake. We cuddle in bed a little bit, and then I go downstairs. When I come downstairs, I always sing to my other dog, Rhodey, and you should write this down. And then I like rub his head and ears and give him hugs and kisses for the morning. But this particular morning, he made a beeline to the back door, and I followed him. I put the collars on the dog, and I got some quick pets and hugs in there, and opened the back door, and then the storm door leading out to my screened-in porch. And in atypical fashion, I let the storm door close. I opened the outside door for the dogs and propped it open as always. I turned to go back in the house, and the door had locked itself behind me. Now, this door has a history. This door has locked me out before, but you see, I keep a set of keys to the house in a lockbox on my back porch, but alas, I did not have my glasses. And no amount of light or squinting could bring the tiny numbers on that box into focus. What to do there on the porch? Kept from my home by a tiny piece of metal, entirely unable to see what was literally right in front of me. I had no keys, no phone, no glasses. I sat there on the porch and thought, isn't this hilarious? Luckily, I had gotten dressed before coming downstairs, so I had that going. I have new neighbors to the house, to the south. Well, that is not always true, to be clear. I have new neighbors to the south of me, and we've been really friendly. And they happen to be early risers like me, I know, because their lights are on. And so I hopped my back fence because I also was unable to see the code to unlock that. And I rang their doorbell, and they answered. Cue the angels singing. And the grandparents do not speak English, but they understand the word help. And they got their son, who came over with his glasses, and helped me get the keys. In the moments on the back porch when I sat on the floor staring, bewildered at the lockbox, I had some time to reflect. I do think Spirit has quite a sense of humor. What are we to do when certainty evades us? But when are we ever certain of anything, really? Told you I have a novel. I noticed the ways I've tried to create certainty in my own life, and in the moment on the porch, Spirit said, look up, look around, see all the grace that is available to you. What else is right in front of me that I am not seeing? What could be the miracle that is awaiting me in this moment? How can I arrive in my body accepting this? I recounted my story to a person I love, and the response was, ooh, I bet that was infuriating. I actually did not feel any anger rise. I felt complete surrender, which was a little bit refreshing and also a little terrifying. I knew that even if I missed my work that day, I would be safe. The dogs would be safe. If my one neighbor had not answered the door, another would. And eventually, even if somebody would have answered and helped me. We live in community for many reasons, mostly because we need each other. When the pandemic hit and people were hoarding toilet paper, it was such a bold example to me of the me first culture we have built. Divisions of the haves and have-nots, age-old and tedious AF, but also a revelation about how shitty some people can actually behave. I seriously want to know how any person is finding their salvation in hoarding toilet paper. Anna Lemke, Stanford University researcher and author of the book Dopamine Nation, writes, human beings, the ultimate seekers, have responded too well to the challenge of pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain. We have transformed the world from a place of scarcity to a place of overwhelming abundance. Tom Finnecane, who studies diabetes in the setting of chronic sedentary feeding, said we are cacti in the rainforest, and like cacti adapted to an arid climate, we are drowning in dopamine. The net effect is that we need more reward to feel pleasure and less injury to feel pain. I am immediately struck by the imagery related to the phrase chronic feeding in a sedentary setting. Really, isn't this what the pandemic produced for many people? Children reported to me that they didn't even get out of bed to start school. Sleeping with their phone or computer, they simply rolled over and signed into classes while still in bed, and typically fell back to sleep or dozed on and off through the day. The smartphone is the modern day hypodermic needle, delivering dopamine 24/7 for a wired generation, writes Lemke. Dopamine is the molecule monitored for measuring the addictive potential of anything. The more dopamine, the more addictive. How much do we need to feel reward? Craving is the moment of the brain's pleasure balance tipped to the side of pain. We are all seeking relief from the pain in which we are drowning. The book is about how to overcome compulsive consumption. Do people actually want to learn how? The book discusses the science of addiction and recovery, and it points out that each of us is an addict of sorts. We live in a culture primed for addictions, and the consequences of the pandemic seem to have turned the volume way up on addictive behaviors, not even remotely limited to hoarding toilet paper. When I consider the concept of what and how we feed ourselves, the word fitness comes to mind. Fitness is such a fat word, overripe and oozing with judgments. What we feed ourselves might be a story about why we are not fit, or a story about how our body is different, or how we have some limitation. But it seems to me that fitness, like addiction, is self-defined, and truly every single body is different. As a coach, what I teach is that awareness is the only point of change. If you plug coordinates into your phone to get a specific location, you also need to know where you currently are in order to draw the map. And this is true for any change. Where am I? Where would I like to be? How can I get there? What am I feeding myself and how? What do I want to eat, to consume, to digest? It's not just the food we are eating, it's how we get our food, where we get it, how it makes us feel. It's not just what we're eating, it's what we're doing while we're eating, reading, watching, listening, etc. It's not just what we're doing while eating, it's what we're doing and thinking and consuming all the time. The only thing not fixed is the path from A to B, but A and B are fixed points. I ask everyone the simplest question: what do you really, really want? And unfortunately, most people answer with, well, I'll tell you what I don't want. But that is seriously missing the point. You're focused on what you don't want, and that is the surest way to get more. All of the places a person can be marketed to reflect a place within them where exchange is off. What am I willing to give and to receive? What is the payoff for consuming toxins, anything from alcohol and drugs to sugar, fast food, and Fox News, or any news? What stirs within? What amount of dopamine hits your reward center? What follows? The point is that when we can get curious instead of certain, we can make some progress. Like, why am I on the porch, locked out of my house? How do you get in touch with what you are feeling? Why are you doing what you are doing? What are some of the things that you are doing that you would like to do less? What are some things you're doing less that you would like to do more? One of the ways to gain some clarity is through the breath. If you're willing, I'd like to do a type of breath with you today. Together we can breathe some life into our hopes and dreams. Collectively, we can call on our higher selves and spirit guides to walk us closer to our higher selves. For me, this means opening the channel to allow more flow. This practice is called alternate nostril breathing. In Ayurveda, it's called Nadi Shodhana. The word nadi means river or flow. Shodhana means purification. This practice cleanses and purifies the nadis or channels of the body and balances the flow of breath through both nostrils, which balances our solar and lunar energies. In Western terms, it increases the flow between the right and left hemispheres of the brain through the corpus callosum. It calms, purifies, and strengthens the nervous system and is best practiced on an empty stomach before the fruit compote. So if you're willing, the instruction is to begin seated in a comfortable position, aligning the spine over the pelvis, using the right hand and folding down, if you want to, folding down your peace sign fingers toward the palm. From this position, you're going to use the right thumb to open and close the right nostril and the right ring finger to open and close the left nostril. With both nostrils open, begin by breathing, inhale and exhale completely. And to begin the first round, close the right nostril and gently inhale through the left. Close the left nostril with the ring finger, open the right, gently exhale through the right nostril, and always switch before the exhale. Sorry. So inhale through, we'll try to do 10 rounds of this, but so inhale through the right nostril and switch nostrils to exhale through the left. It will become painfully obvious that I don't know how to count. So just wherever you are, go ahead and complete one more full round. Some of the benefits of this type of breathing are relieving insomnia, stress reduction, relieving anxiety. It purifies the channels of the body, calms the nervous system, and can regulate body temperature. One thing I practice through the breath work is a way to do something without doing something. Another type of breath work I practice and teach is a meditation called the pranayama breath. It's a way of breathing through the mouth only and is a way to bypass the mind, moving directly into the body. There are infinite paths inward, and I choose several to deepen my own connection to self. Even in the way I teach movement, there is not one way, there is your way right now. And way will shift. Way opens and closes, not unlike the heart center. It seems to me that part of my work on this three-dimensional plane is to continually seek and find way, knowing that every aspect of self will also shapeshift and disappear and reappear in new ways as I do. The quote, "How often I have found where I should be going by setting out for somewhere else," by Buckminster Fuller, rests on the wall in my studio. I know this intimately. I moved to Chicago in 2006 for a postdoctoral position in biochemistry and molecular genetics at UIC. I worked in a prestigious laboratory with the world's expert in anticoagulation. My doctoral research had been in examining the interactions of enzymes involved in the coagulation cascade, better known as blood clotting. The human body has fascinated me since I can remember. I knew when I was 16 that I would study biochemistry. It took me longer than some people to finally gather the courage to pursue my dreams, and I'm still pursuing them, and they shift perpetually. I found it difficult to emerge amongst the overwhelming noise that bombarded my own inner signal. I quit things most people wouldn't. I went to college on a scholarship to play the violin. Who the hell even knew I was down in Louisville, Kentucky making music? I wanted to play field hockey in college, but apparently I was meant to play music. I left college after 2 years, even though I loved my school. I did not understand that I could get a degree in music and not have to be a musician for the rest of my life. I knew what I wanted, and I knew I didn't want that. I left college. I'd been cooking in a retreat center in the mountains all summer and rafting and watching Luna moths as big as my head, making new friends. And so I stayed a while until my parents convinced me that I should be productive. So I was shepherded back to Louisville to live with my parents and get a job. I started cooking in restaurants and then went off to Italy to study cooking in a 5-star hotel in Salsa Maggiore Terme, near where my father had grown up. I began to gain weight through college and after. While I lived in Italy, I rode my bike everywhere I went. I ate clean food. I worked a lot and spent time with family and lost a lot of weight. That would be a theme in my life. On purpose, lean; off purpose, fat, until I stopped the cycle. When I was 24, I lost over 100 pounds and have kept it off for the last 32 years. Weight loss is a practice, not a diet. I lost weight by getting clear on exchange, by resuming physical activity that I loved, eating whole foods that I cooked, and quitting toxins. There have been periods in my life traceable to relationship woes, job changes, and general angst, where it was harder, but it's always a practice. Everything we choose is a practice. What does it feel like to eat things you know don't make you feel good? For me, change came from the constant awareness that I wanted to feel better. The book Dopamine Nation will give you all the science, and the truth is we're all getting a fix, like a drug. There's a real hormonal chemistry happening. Every pursuit of pleasure from a physiological perspective is rewarded with a pain response. Dr. Lemke calls them gremlins who hop on the other end of the seesaw to re-equilibrate it. My personal philosophy assumes that everything is emerging as a consequence of both the tension and unity between interacting systems. I believe that mental phenomena are neither separate nor distinct from physical events. Thinking and feeling are deeply connected. What is happening is felt in the body because thought produces form on some level. And the body keeps the score for sure, as Basil van der Kolk has written so eloquently. And sages describe a state without suffering and a way to get there. The way is not to be searching for a remedy, a panacea, a magic bullet, or a pill, but to engage in the ongoing process of learning to become more animated and more connected, to become, in essence, more charged with life force. My intention is to be progressing toward greater integration through the cultivation of my own energy. My practices allow me to notice when I am not in alignment and to come back faster and with greater ease and with some grace for myself for reacting in an old pattern. I feel better when I choose grace. This is the guiding principle of my life and work. It feels good to be kind. It feels good to laugh. It feels good to move. Movement as meditation is not to create states of ecstasy or absorption, but to experience being. In meditation as in movement, there is a quality of both being and of rest, an arousal of your feelings of trust. Trust in what? Finding your home ground, paying attention to what's happening in your body. You are not meditating on anything else. Whatever we do in life, we are affected by our mind. Movement can be a meditation that allows us to slow the speed of thinking, to let go, to tune in, to practice being conscious of what's going on in your own body. What goes on with our body is worthy of respect. Self-respect, as Joan Didion reminds us, springs from accepting responsibility for our lives in totality. Feeding irritation by doing something to get rid of it doesn't help at all. If you relate to it, it can be an expression of well-being and of survival. No point in suppressing what comes up. The very fact that you are capable of experiencing irritation means that your psychological state is refined, sensitive, and intelligent. Movement allows a type of concentrating that is an expression of well-being. Parker Palmer wrote that he has never seen way open before him, but he has seen way closed behind him many times, and that is how he knows way is open in front of him. Way closes behind us, just like my back door. Find a way to surrender. Everyone who does anything great follows some version of this path. You get locked out of the life you thought was yours. You find a new way, you walk toward yourself, and you keep going on the path. Internally, you already know everything. Your job is remembering. The oak tree emerges from the acorn, and no amount of forcing can produce an oak tree faster. Our work is to create the conditions for ourselves to bloom, and this requires deep listening and experiment. There's no substitute for genuine risk. Whatever we have put on hold in our lives is always there waiting. As Sojourner Truth reminds us, it is the mind that makes the body. That's it. Yes, I'd love to take questions. I love to. Yes.
I was curious about your mentioning the left and right hemispheres. I don't hear that mentioned too often, but can you say more about why paying attention to our left and right hemispheres can be beneficial?
Oh, in terms of the breath work?
Yes.
In my experience, it's an integration process so it's a lot of it is the integration of the masculine and feminine, of the energies that we have in our body. It's also the thinking, the logic, and the creative. And so integrating those two parts of us allow us to enter into life more fully, more integrated. And it's experiential for me. Doing anything with my breath is like these practices that I choose are experiential. They're ways that I enter more fully into my own life. And if that resonates, I keep it. And if it doesn't, I can just let it go.
Thank you for the talk. Really interesting. I found, especially the first part, I don't know exactly what, I don't remember exactly what you said, but it was very, in a sedentary position, chronically taking in dopamine, which is like looking at your phone, kind of, what does it do? It leaves you always wanting, positive input and being very impatient when it's not positive.
You're right. And what happens, and that the science of that is that so pain and pleasure are processed in the same place in the brain. And so when you're receiving what is perceived as pleasure, there's a pain response coming because the body wants to recreate equilibrium. And so then craving is the moment which pain tips just slightly above pleasure. And so then we begin again, the cycle, right? And it's this constant, like the body's constantly trying to re-equilibrate that, which is why there's a constant need for the next fix and the next fix and the next fix, which of course is always leaving your perception of what you need or want or desire outside of you, instead of remembering that it's already in here, that you don't need that constant external validation. Yeah, that whole concept of chronic feeding in a sedentary state, I found just so profound that is kind of what's happening, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's kind of scary, actually, but it's so true. I feel that we are really an addictive nation right now, and that's scary.
Right, but also with some mindfulness, with the sitting still, with the listening, when you find yourself locked out on your back porch, it's time to get still. See what else am I not seeing that's right in front of me? What else? Like asking some deeper questions, I think everybody has that, very, it's a very direct voice inside of them that is the knowing, and it's all the things we do to quiet that voice that really harm us, that knowing of. I work with some person that I have in mind is really in a state of always questioning his alcohol consumption, and I just think if there's a question, then that's a
It's a knowing.
That's a knowing, right? You already know the answer, but all of the things that we do to try to avoid that are really the root of suffering, I think. Suffering is not quitting. Quitting is easy, right? Suffering is not the quitting, it's trying to manage doing it, and then all of the whatever comes up afterward.
So that's why I like to do these meditation retreats regularly, because it helps me to let go and stop looking at my phone or whatever, just to kind of get in touch with that voice.
Yeah, and I think there's so
that
many
knowing.
parts of that. There's the detox part of it, because I'm like, I always bring things like this up. Like, I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, and so you can just bet that if you say to Spirit, please let me let go of this, let's say anger, then you can bet for sure that by process of detox, Spirit is going to hand you 5 people by the afternoon who will piss you off like no other, you know? And you just go, and so that's a process of detox. And so it requires the letting go. It requires us actively letting go, you know, putting down the phone, sitting in meditation. So to me, it's that both and. It's not just I sit and, a person can sit and perseverate, or a person can sit and change their brain waves. You know, a person can move and perpetuate illness, dis-ease, discomfort, pain, or a person can move and relieve those things. So there's not one, right, there's not one way, but it's not just bringing the intention to it, it's recognizing that I have to let go of something in order to me, it's that concept of exchange. What am I willing to give? What am I willing to receive? What can I let go? What can I allow?
Sorry. I just wanted to say thank you for this wonderful talk. And I know you show up as you are, and some of these concepts I've heard before because, you know, I do work with you. But I just want to say how lovely it is how you tie into your talk just the value of community. And I feel like I come in and see you and you show up as you are and bring for me a reflection so that I can see myself. And you sit where that rubber meets the road and say to me again and again, like, you're not an oak tree, you're a maple tree. Like, quit trying to be an oak tree, and no, you can't rush it. Like, you're not blooming today, or your leaves aren't falling today. You have to stick with it. You have to do it. So I love that balance that you bring of like taking people to their edge state and holding that space for them to stay there and make that transformation possible. So I feel like just having that, working with you, I see that come through in your talk, and I love the idea of like, you know, we're sort of like cactus in a rainforest, and how do we connect back with ourselves to bring what is supposed to be for us here for everyone. So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you bringing that.
Thank you.
I too, I think what's really powerful for me is the remembering part, the remembering of what we have inside of us already, and to honor that rather than, you know, push it aside or think that things don't matter. I really think that that is just so powerful, and I thank you so much for reminding me every time I come in and see you. And it really, I carry it with me. I don't have to have you there all the time to remind me of these things, but your message carries with me wherever I go, and it's so powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone online who'd like to give a question or comment? We have others in the room here too. I do just want to add too that idea of when you're on your purpose, that you're lean, and when you're off your purpose, you're fat. Like, I feel like that is something I'm going to chew on for a while, because
And that's meant to be also metaphorically lean and fat.
Right.
It's not just the physical. Nothing is just physical. There's no such thing. I mean, all of our energy, like everything that is happening, has an emotional, spiritual root. And so we're just energy. I mean, physics dictates that this is energy. And so everything that we're experiencing is our own energy and how it's interacting with other, who's it bouncing off of, and how can you shift your energy through movement, through mindfulness, through meditation, through the food you eat, through the way you prepare your food, through the blessings that you give your food, through the people that you sit with, you know, through community, through having neighbors that you make friends with, you know. We come more fully into ourselves, which is our purpose here. Because we cannot be in our calling, we cannot be of service without being present.
Thank you. Thank you. Great talk. I enjoyed. There were so many layers, but the one that came to mind now, you mentioned food again. That's not,
Are you hungry?
that's something is baking there, but it's our brain and gut. I think that triggered something you were talking about, like, that gut feeling and the nerve vagus coming.
Yeah.
So we are okay hearing our brain, like I know what's right and wrong, but like when then there is discrepancy between what I'm feeling in my gut and what my brain is telling me. Any comment or suggestion? Like, I know meditation would definitely help you sit with the feeling, something's off, but that's that kind of, how do you find the right answer when there is not the same message from the two centers?
Well, in my own experience, it's a practice of listening to that voice, your inner guide. And that listening is like a feeling, it's an inner knowing. And so, so for me, like I had an experience when I was when I was a little girl. I was very introverted and believe it or not, small and quiet. And I was bused. So I lived in Louisville, Kentucky, and I was bused in the 6th grade. So my first year of middle school, I was bused, and I just felt like I was scared. I was just really scared, and so almost daily I would have these really bad stomach aches, and I would go to the nurse's office, and my grandmother, who was alive at the time, would come and pick me up, and then my mother would yell at me and say, "There's nothing wrong with you. As soon as you get to Grammy's house, you're fine." And it was like going back and healing that for me was to recognize that I knew I wasn't safe until I was then with my grandma, until I was safe, and so that I knew both things on the inner level, on that inner voice, and to be constantly told that I was wrong and that I didn't know what I was feeling was just another hurdle. But going back and doing that work of recognizing, remembering where I knew that voice, existed. And I think being in the room with people who remind you that you already know is really important. I work with a lot of young people, and I was working with a young man yesterday. He was 18 and getting ready to go to college and has a job, and he was at his job and he was supposed to close up, and he's been doing this all summer, and there was someone in the bathroom who was also worked there and had the door locked, and he couldn't get the person out, and he was really upset, and he called the person and it was just him and this person in the bathroom who wasn't responding. It was like an hour and a half, and he had this internal knowing, and he called the person who was supposed to help him, who just didn't give him any help. And so the conversation that I had with him is, but you knew. And when people say to you, "Oh God, get over it, dude, nothing bad happened," I was like, well, so then are we meant to wait until the person pulls a gun, stumbles out, or is dead, or something? So is it then that unless something horrible happens, we're wrong?
Yeah, right.
That's not possibly true, is to go back and go, I know. And so I think it's the practice of remembering that. Right, and trusting. And one of the things I said to him was, I said, this is where young men's their feminine energy is eroded. Their knowing, their kindness, their sweetness is eroded. Man up, get over it. And this is where women are abducted and raped and murdered, when you don't listen to that voice. And that's a very dramatic way to see it, but it's also very true. And if you go back through your life, you can remember some of those places where you knew. And it isn't always this massive, dramatic, horrible, traumatic thing, but life is built up. I mean, suffering is really about how do we endure these small injustices that many of the times we do to ourselves, but it's the longest answer possible is really, it's just to say it's just that practice of tuning in, and it's here, when do these two connect, and and how do we make the journey of no distance from the mind to the heart? you know, it is constantly connecting these two things. It's both and.
Yeah.
Another question. I was curious, it sounds like a philosophy of energy. I don't know what you want to call it, but is there some book that you would recommend that your talk is based on? Or one
Oh
or two
my
books?
God.
Yeah.
He doesn't know me. There's a library. There's a library. I have an addiction to books. Wow. That's a great question. What books would I recommend? I think, I mean, okay, so what comes to mind immediately, because I wasn't thinking about this at all, but what comes to mind immediately would be, you know, someone's book who I like the way they think about things like this would be Anne Lamott, like almost any book by her, you know, Help, Thanks, Wow, or just like, you know, tuning into your inner voice. Gosh, I don't know. Come on, Vivian, help me out here. Kelly, how many books do I recommend?
I get a book recommendation or two like
I know,
every
like,
week.
every day.
I feel like
I'm
Broken
usually, like-
Open. Yeah, that was beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Great book would be Broken Open by Elizabeth Lesser. She is
It's
one of the
beautiful.
founders of the
Yeah.
Omega Institute,
That was
and also
beautiful.
a brilliant writer. Gosh, energetically. So many poets. Yeah. Mary Carr. Mary Oliver, for sure. One of my favorites. I'll come up with a million more, don't you worry. I'll text them all to Vivian. I'll be like, and this one, and the next one, and.
And what was the name of that addiction that you mentioned at the
This
very
book
top?
it's a new book. It's called Dopamine Nation. It's quite good. It's just sort of, perhaps a little bit depressing, but she does walk through the, how to, she's a Stanford researcher, and I don't know if she's a psychiatrist, but she's a PhD, she's a doctor, PhD, MD, maybe all of the above.
So should we open up? Anyone online have, I feel like we haven't heard from our online friends this morning. Anyone online have a comment or question? I know we're getting closer to time now.
Yeah, I had a question. And thank you for the talk. I really appreciated it. And I appreciate all the work that you do with Kelly. I know she loves coming to see you. But I was just kind of curious in like your client practice itself, like, are there things like key like similarities you notice when people are struggling, and then maybe like key like flashes of insight where you can see like transformation and success? Like, just I guess kind of the question, just anything from your client experiences that's particularly helpful in working with so many different people and kind of seeing maybe some commonalities of how people struggle and how people succeed.
I think that the key, what I notice the most is a person's own involvement in their own process. How engaged a person is in their own process is the single determinant of success. And that is true across every discipline. I've taught biochemistry, I've taught in medical school, in terms of coaching and nutrition, sports, all the things that I've taught. I just noticed that a person's own involvement is the key to their success. Their willingness to engage is the key. And I just think that's the thing. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. That I'm not sitting at some higher place saying, in fact, when people come to see me and like in a consultation, I very, very clearly say, you know, I am here, I will walk with you, may sometimes be ever so slightly behind you, kicking you in the ASS, but not much. I can't drag you. I'm not here to walk in front of you. I don't know the way. I have only found which way is east, and I can show you what I have learned, but that's all I have. I can only mirror for people what they're willing to let me see. and we can only energetically work together. And so, and that's a feeling. I mean, energy is a feeling. It's everybody knows what's happening. If one person isn't engaged in the process, neither can the other person. It's very, animals are my dogs work with me every day, and animals get this. They don't go where there's no energy. When there's it's sort of not a very pleasant way to say this, but I had to put one of my dogs down, and at the time I had 2 other dogs, and I had the vet come to the house and put the dog down. And as soon as the dog was gone, had left the body, the other dogs never came back in the room. They knew it, and they never even came back in the room. They didn't come back to sniff the body. It was this knowing. And I think that's to get in touch with your own internal knowing, to go where you feel the energy, and to exchange energy at that level, to on purpose exchange energy that you want to receive. But only that which I am not giving can be lacking in any situation. And when I accept that responsibility for myself, I understand that that is just the clear message. That's not my way, so I think that Joan Didion, that, accepting 100% responsibility for every single thing that happens in my life is the way. And that means that I didn't cause it. It doesn't mean that, I made this accident happen. That's not accepting responsibility isn't taking blame and shame and applying that to something. It's really just going, I know I'm here, and I'd like to go there. Can you walk with me? And I'll say, yes, I can walk with you, but I can't take you there.
Can you say that one more time, that which I do not give?
Only that which I am not giving can be lacking in any situation. I can only give that which I have received. If you think of this as like a glass of water, like this, okay? I can only give that which I have received. And so the only way for me to receive is to take the lid off, right? And the only way for me to give is to take the lid off and pour. But it has to be this interchange. It has to be this exchange, right? Which is how I speak about energy, is that there's an exchange. If I'm full, I'm exchanging with the universe. I'm channeling. I'm just a channel for spirit. I am exchanging with the universal life force. If I am not true to myself, I'm exchanging at a different vibrational frequency down here. And it's just that sort of, you get what you give. To me, it's just that simple. And it's sometimes a different concept, but is not difficult. It is just that, no, it's that, I think it's the hardest part is knowing what you want. And that is part of that Buckminster Fuller thing. Like, how do I find out what I want? As I start walking down that path, it isn't just like, I'm going to stay connected to that goal no matter what. I'm not going to, that's like, putting those blinders on is not energetically going to get me where I want to go. That is a force. There's a great book, Power versus Force. I want to say David Hawkins. Am I right?
But Power versus Force, that'll get him there.
Okay, Power versus Force. Also his book, anything by him, if I got his name right. God, I can't think. That you can't force it. Like power, like force is linear, force is defined, force is like has a beginning and an end. Power expands endlessly. Yes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Gosh, I'm like,
On point.
Even in my body. Am I embodied right now? Am I here? Right? Yeah. Yeah, power versus force. So understanding things like that, like if I'm I can't force the bud to open, the power is already in it. It's going to emerge. If you take a rosebud and try to peel it open and make it hurry up, you're just killing it, And that's like the thing. It's like, how can I allow what's happening to emerge? And that is this internal process of, what am I feeding myself? How am I consuming energy? How am I producing energy? How is it going? How am I letting go and allowing it to move through me? How am I engaging him? I think it's asking more questions, you know, really. It's like always, it's always being curious.
That not knowing.
Yeah, it is not knowing, but it's also just, it's not just not knowing, it's asking. It's saying, I don't know how. It's saying, I don't know how. I want this, I want this, I think I want this, I have this desire, and I believe that this desire is in me for a reason. It's not a desire to have a new car or, you know, some, you know, object or something. It's this desire to become more of who I was intended to be. That desire is in us, it's baked in. And so how do I follow that is by asking, to me, is by asking more questions, to being curious in your own process. What could get me there?
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you.
I think we have about 1 minute left before we hit the snacks. Any last comments?
Yeah, I have a question or comment. I've been struggling with expectation. And what I noticed when you were, in a very simplistic way, what I noticed when you gave this example of locking yourself out, for me, I would have said, oh shit, why did you do that? Instead of what I saw was like being, as you wanted to put it, responsible for where you are and saying, oh, here I am. I must be, you know, maybe I subconsciously wanted to do that, but anyway, here I am, and what do I do now? I wish that I could, when I had these instances where I say, slam the door on myself and say, oh shit, why did I do that? It's like, well, here I am, you know. What can I do now? This is life. This is how life turns out.
Yeah, it is. This is life. And that part of that is that recognition, like recognizing that I'm like, I am just here. And so this is happening. How can I accept it? How can I arrive in my body accepting what is? And I do talk a lot about these practices like, okay, I gotta go over 2 railroad tracks to get to work every day, and I come and go to work twice a day. That's a lot of train possibilities. And let me tell you, and it's just always this opportunity to recognize that the train is not happening to me, right? The train is not coming to mess me up, to make me late, or to have anything to do with me. It's happening. And as I watch people accelerating and trying to get ahead and trying to force things to happen, you know, it doesn't just allow that space. And so I think the moment is, the practice is to go, oh, here's that thing again, that thing that I do, you know, and then go, how does it serve me? Because what can I let go of? It's recognizing, what do I want to receive? What do I want to give? And what's my exchange? And what's my exchange in this? Just sort of asking that question. So it's not to beat yourself up. It's not the oh shit moment exists for everybody, right? But then it's like, oh shit, maybe it's, oh shit, I'm doing that thing again, you know? Oh, there I am again. Oh yes. And then to come back to, I'm safe. I have community. I have everything I need is in me. And how can I go deeper and find that? What's the next question I can ask to know that I already possess it? I'm already an acorn. All I'm doing here is creating conditions to become the best oak tree that I can become.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. Enjoy your Sunday. We appreciate it.
It was a wonderful talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The online